Hi everyone, this is Mary, you're in Mary Reads. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is not planned. I was planning on making a video that was a little bit different from this. I decided to find a list of 30 books you should read before you turn 30 and see how far along I am on the list, get some new ideas about what I want to read in the future, and just have fun. But while I was doing research, I found two very interesting articles. One by Mary Claire Australia about 30 books women should read before they turn 30, and the second one by Esquire about 30 books men should read before they turn 30. So I decided to compare these two lists and kind of give you an idea of what these lists look like. Today we will talk about the list of 30 books women should read before they turn 30, but we will only go through 15 books this time and 15 books next time. And then we will talk about the list of 30 books men should read before they turn 30. So let's see if the books are different. And again, today we're starting with 30 books for women. But before we begin, please do not forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel not to miss any future videos. Book 1 is The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini. I don't really know why it is a book that women should read. Why should not men read it as well? I know what this book is about, but I don't really want to read it. It was not on my TBR, though I know people say that it's a great book. It covers the story of two Afghani boys named Amir and Hassan and how one event changes their lives. It says here that this book covers everything from racism to classism, friendship and falling outs, somehow managing to find beauty in the most painful of things. Sounds good, but I don't see why it's a book for women, why women should read it before they turn 30. Book number 2 is Call Me By Your Name by Andrei Archiman. I'm not sure how to pronounce the last name, unfortunately, and I've never read books by this author before, but I have heard about Call Me By Your Name. If I'm not mistaken, this is a love story between two men, but I am not entirely sure. Based on the review here, I only see that it happens in North Italy in the early 1980s. And this story tells us that there is nothing more powerful than young love, which I probably agree with. We all still remember our first love, and I feel like that's something you never forget because it was just different. Can't say that it was better or it was truer than the love you found later in life, but it's just something that is forever left in your memories. Book number 3, My Body Keeps Your Secrets by Lucia Osborne Crawley. This book is nonfiction and it talks about how the female body is impacted by trauma and how it even says here that it changes our biology. So I think this is about how it literally changes the body. So maybe it changes your nervous system, maybe changes the way you stand, the way you look, the way you act. So it's a big change that is clearly visible. This seems like an interesting topic, and the author interviewed more than 100 people for this book. So there will be a lot of kind of firsthand experience. But the only thing is that this book looks like it's going to be hard to read because these people have a lot of violent experiences, a lot of very traumatic experiences. So that's something to keep in mind before you take this book. Next, A Man Called Uwe by Fredrik Backman. I have read this book and I really enjoyed it. This is a story about an old man who is very grumpy, unhappy with his life. His wife passed away and he lives alone. But everything changes when this very loud and very, happy family moves in, and he becomes a part of this crazy new life. I loved this book, but again, I don't see why it is in the list for women. I feel like it's for everyone. This story is something that anyone would enjoy. I know there's also a movie. I haven't watched it, but I want to. Though I'm really worried that it's not going to be as good as the book and I will be disappointed. I don't want to be disappointed in this story in no way. Next goes The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. I, again, am not sure why this book was offered specifically for women, but of course we all know this novel and we've all read it. It's one of those novels that if you read as a child, you see it as a fairy tale. If you read it as an adult, it's a completely different story and you find a lot of meaning to it. Here it says that reading this book as an adult will not only have you grieving your loss of innocence, but will equally give you hope for the future. It also says that The Little Prince is a novel. I don't know if it's a novel. I know it's a very short story. So please let me know if this indeed is a novel. The next book is something that I have on my reading list and that I'm very curious about is The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. Here I see why it was on the list of books for women specifically. This is a story about a 19-year-old Esther who wins a writing competition for a New York magazine, and she thinks that this is the new chapter of her life. This will open up a lot of different ways for her and will start her dream life, but she finds herself thinking about who she really is versus what society wants her to be. I feel like this topic is something that is never going to die. What you see yourself as versus what society wants you to be. And for a woman, it is an important topic to discuss, as it is for a man. But I assume that here we will focus on a woman's life, so I see why this book is on the list. Next, The Great Gatsby by Francis Scott Fitzgerald. I loved this story. This is a story that is set in 1920 New York City, and it talks about what stands behind the American dream and how it really is. We will talk about the issues of class, wealth, love. I absolutely adored this story. I think it's amazing. This is the book that I found in my 20s. I think I read it last year when I was 24. But I know that American students read it in school. We did not, which I am upset about. But being 24, I appreciated the book and I enjoyed it a lot. I don't know how well you can relate to it and understand it if you are in your teens. The next book is called The Panic Years by Nell Frizzle. I really think that this book is something important to read. This book answers the questions women have about having babies. And this is a question you start asking yourself in your 20s, early 30s. Do I want to have a kid right now? If I don't want to have a kid right now and I want to have a kid later, will I be able to? Will my health still be good enough to give birth later? And if I decide to have a kid right now, what do I do with my career? How do I balance it? And will I be able to balance it? Or do I have to choose between career and having a baby? And if I have to choose, what's more important to me? Do I want to keep my career, keep going, but then not see my children growing? Or do I want to spend all of my time raising kids, but then lose my career and, for some people, part of my identity, part of my goals? So what do I want to do here? I think this is a very important book to read in your 20s, early 30s, and I would actually consider reading this book myself because I am in my 20s, and that is a question that I have already asked myself, and I don't know the answer to it, so maybe this book will give me a little bit more clarity. The next book is Heartburn by Nora Ephron. I absolutely adore this book. I've read it a couple years ago, and I took this book thinking that it's going to be cringe, that I'm not going to like it. And I started reading this book as something that I wanted to criticize. But when I was making a video about it, I realized that I loved the story so much. This is Nora Ephron's personal story because she here talks about the divorce that she had with her husband. And what made it more painful was that they had a kid and she was pregnant with their second kid. I think it was a son. So she finds out that her husband is cheating on her when she's pregnant. And what does she do? She's in such a vulnerable position, and it's so painful to find out that your husband is cheating on you. So how is she going to get through this grief and anger and sadness? This book is super therapeutic. I said the same thing about The Wedding People. This is one of those books that a woman who went through a breakup or is going through a breakup should definitely read. I really think that it's something that you read to kind of get back to normal or make the first steps of getting back to normal. I absolutely loved this book and I'm glad it is on this list. The next is the book that I've heard a lot about, but I haven't read it yet. Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. This novel tells us about navigating love and breakup and friendship and any sort of relationship in your 20s. And this is something that a lot of women can relate to, again, based on this review. So I'm super interested. I love this type of books, and I really hope that it's going to be good. If you've read it, please let me know if that's something I should read, or is it just, hyped up. But I will try to look for this book in the library because it sounds amazing, and it sounds maybe a little bit like Heartburn, maybe a little bit like Bridget Jones' Diaries. So if it is indeed so, I would love to read this book. Next is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Here, I'm not sure why this is a book for women. I think men can enjoy it as well. This is a dark academia novel, probably one of the most known examples of dark academia novels, one of the first examples of dark academia novels. And it tells a story of a murder. It happens in a university, and in the center of our attention is a group of classics students who are very wealthy, and they are this elite special group. And we know who does it. We know who the victim is. We just don't know why it was done. And this is what makes this book so breathtaking. It's not your classic mystery where you're trying to find out who the killer is. No, here you know all of that, but you want to know the motive. And this book is very dark, very cold. I made a mistake of reading it in summer. I actually think that maybe if I have time, I will reread it this fall. I was not planning on doing that, but now that I'm thinking about this book, I really want to get back to it. The next book is My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Atessa Moshfegh. And I've heard about this book, but I don't want to read it because I've heard that it's very depressing. Let me just read what Ava Gilchrist says about this book. She's a digital fashion writer for Marie Claire. She will be able to explain what's going on in this book much better than me. So the writer satirically examines the pitfalls of excessive consumption, loss, and materialism in Y2K New York. The narrator, who is unbearably unlikable as she's relatable in her plight to succumb to a pseudo-depression by sleeping away her issues, is hair-raising and thrilling story of the lengths we go to assimilate, isolate, and self-destruct in the pursuit of tending to our sad girl desires. Kind of sounds depressing. I do not want to read it, but it does sound interesting. It does sound very intriguing. So maybe when I'm ready, I will change my mind. We'll see. Next, Between Two Kingdoms by Suleika Jawad. This is a memoir. So the writer was diagnosed with leukemia at age 22, and she spent the next 5 years in hospitals going through this very harsh treatment. And her life was kind of on pause. She was not sure where she's going, what direction her life is going to take. And she was kind of floating there. And she talks about this feeling of not understanding where you're going, what you're doing with your life. And this is a feeling that all of us can relate to. Of course, not all of us have felt it to such an extent. Not all of us had such experiences as the author did, but she touches this topic of not understanding what you're doing with your life, and she's helping you cope with it by just sharing her experiences. I think this is an important topic. I would assume this book is going to be very strongly tied to the health issues the author had, so I don't know how much you're going to be able to relate, like to what extent, but this is something that is worth reading, I think. Next, Nick Hornby's High Fidelity. This story is about a 30-something guy who owns a record store, and he's just going through his life. He has interactions with a lot of different people. He discovers that the reason why he's still single and why all of his relationships end and why they're not successful is because he's scared of commitment, and that's something some of us can relate to. So he's discussing that, and it looks like this book is going to be a lot of fun. The review says that it is ridiculous and it makes you laugh, so I'm actually interested in this. I will try to find it in the library. I've never heard about this book before. And finally, book 15 is 1984 by George Orwell. This is just a classic that I think everyone should read, not just women, not just men. It is for everyone. This is one of the most known dystopian novels. It's not the first one, but it is one of the most known. Talks about rebellion, about totalitarianism, about control, and how much destruction it causes to personalities. I don't think this is just for women. I think this is for everyone. So these were the first 15 books on the list. Let me know if you've read any of these. Let me know if you agree with this list. I will be back with part 2 either later this week or next week. We'll see how much time I have. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like it and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.